All right, guys, good morning. I suppose it's my turn, I'm being told by Tracy to facilitate today's meeting. So I want to pass out the data forms that she filled out prior to this meeting with all of our data that we turned into her. So there's yours.
Thank you, Nick.
Jeff. Mine, and then here, guys. So we've been asked to kind of go over team norms because we're talking about data and talking about teaching, and so I just want to take a second to kind of review the norms that we created as a team months ago. First norm, we use data rather than opinion or personal experience to frame team decisions, and if we don't have existing data, we commit to gather. We maintain confidentiality. Data is public, but what's said here remains private as we work through complex issues and craft knowledge of teaching. All right, guys, I'm going to be doing some charting on our conversation here in a second, but I kind of want to establish a parking lot if there's any topics to get brought up that we need to further discuss at the end of our meeting. I'll put it on the parking lot, and so we can kind of keep on target. The first step we're kind of being asked to do is to review really quickly what priority standard we selected and that this assessment was based on.
Okay, so I have that. Determine the central ideas or conclusions of a text, provide an accurate summary of the text distinct from prior knowledge or opinions. And we had agreed that it would be 75% or higher would be proficient. You guys?
I think that was right. Yeah.
Yep.
All right, guys, so the first step in the process is for all of us to take a second to review the data sheet that our department chair provided us. The goal is to kind of look at and find some patterns, some trends perhaps, where are students scoring the highest, where are students scoring the lowest, and we want to create some comments that you might have, and I'll chart those in a second, so I'm going to give us some time to kind of work on that. Had some time to look at the data. What did you guys see?
Students were much more successful at finding the facts that support the central idea over identifying the actual central idea.
Okay. Anybody else?
So what stood out to me when I was looking at the data was I noticed that my students scored the lowest on identifying the facts, which was question 1, needed for a summary. But then on the other side, they scored the highest for identifying the central idea.
All right, we got a strength identified. Is there an area of weakness that we're seeing within the data?
Yeah, so for me, my kids were weak. They on one of the questions, so they scored lowest on identifying the facts needed for an appropriate summary. So that's definitely one of the weak points. And then, but on the other hand, they scored highest for identifying the central idea.
Okay.
Should
On the so what section now, what are some successes and possible reasons that we have looking at this?
Well, you know, and I don't like to admit it, but one thing that jumps out to me is on question 1, you guys all were at like 90%, and I was definitely lower than that. It's not necessarily a success for me, but it's a success for our team. So I'd like to know what got you there as a success.
Yeah, I agree. Our students did do well in question 1. Mine in particular, in a strategy I use for that concept is really a lot of close reading.
Okay.
And I do a lot of those strategies, and I did it right before the CFA too. So maybe that was the reason. I don't know.
Okay.
So close
That's
reading
good.
strategies. What obstacles did you guys notice, and do you have any ideas on that?
Well, I'll go again, but only because I was the best this time. No, as a whole, I think we struggled in question 2. And I think that was the one about identifying the central idea.
Yeah, kids have a hard time with that.
Well, It is. I don't know if it was the question. I'm not sure if it, it could have been just a bad question. I'd like to look at it. But maybe we didn't spend enough time on it either. I'm not sure.
So possible reasons is maybe not enough time spent on that skill?
Yeah, I agree with that.
Or maybe it's a wording of the question.
So one obstacle we have is students struggle with number 2, and a possible reason they didn't have enough time. Are there any other obstacles that we saw?
Well, when I look at question number 5, we all scored pretty low on question number 5, and it's very similar to question number 2. And one of the things that is the same in both of those questions is students are to select the best choice. So there are good choices in there, but I think we need to work on helping students understand what is the best choice.
And number 2 was very similar to
Very
that
similar,
question.
yes.
So,
2 and 5 are very similar.
Focus on students choosing the best choice.
Correct.
Well guys, we did a pretty good job on number 1. As you can see, our students did really well. Number 2, number 5, similar questions. We seem our students seem to struggle with those questions. We have 2 possible reasons. And so we're gonna go down to now what here in a second. We're gonna be creating a plan. We've got to first agree to what the reason. So the 2 reasons we've identified are, number 1 is we didn't spend enough time. And the second possible reason is that we need to shift more focus on working with students to choose the best answer versus one that might be close but doesn't fully encompass everything that they need to do. So what do you guys think?
Yeah, I totally agree with that.
I think it could be pretty easy to focus on the kids and best. We just got to figure out how, but I think we could find a way to wrap that in to what we're doing and see if it makes a difference.
All right guys, we just got done looking at our specific students that didn't do very well on this assessment, and we're kind of at the now what stage where we need to create an action plan, identifying kind of the strategy that we think is going to help these students learn this information. So what's your ideas on that?
So Brad, you said your kids did the best on the question. You used closed reading. What strategies did you use exactly in closed reading?
Well, I do a lot of think out louds with the kids every day. I've been doing that from the beginning of the year, but I've been hitting it pretty hard with that strategy the last few weeks. But I think the most important thing is modeling using metacognitive markers and just doing that, the repetitiveness of that. I think kids are picking up on that piece to really dive into the text and pull out key ideas.
Okay, so I think that's a great idea. Let's model some of those closed reading strategies.
Yeah, thanks for asking.
The kids did well.
Thank you, appreciate it.
So I guess are we gonna do it as our whole group? I mean, your kids did really well. I know for me, mine unfortunately had the lowest score in this area, so I'm probably looking at it as the whole class because I have so many, and looking at it, I have my ELs, my special ed, and a lot of other kids that really kind of struggled with it. So I've got to do everybody again.
Right.
What are you guys thinking as far as what you plan to do with yours?
When I look at my period by period data, I see that 3 of my classes scored really high, but 2 of my classes not so much. So the 2 I'm definitely going to embed some more whole group instruction, but the other 3 I think I can just pull small groups of students while other students are working on classwork and do some small group guided instruction with maybe a little bit more scaffolding than some of those closed read strategies.
Yeah, and I do the same since 93% of them mastered this piece. With that 7%, which I know the couple kids that I'm going to pull them aside and do the same thing.
I had a larger amount of my students that didn't get it, and so I think I'm just going to incorporate your strategy, Brad, into warm-ups for the next 5 days, and then we can reassess, and we'll talk about that in a second. Reassess and see if they got it. So I have some small group and warm-ups with whole group. Any other ways we want to readdress this with those students?
There's a few that did really poorly all the way around and they've been consistent, so I'm going to pull them as individuals and just have them come in at lunch too, just for quick 5 minutes.
That's a great idea.
But just so that they're not totally embarrassed by sitting there with a group, I want to see if I can get down to what's holding them back.
All right, sounds like a great plan, guys. I think we identified several ways that we're going to reintroduce this skill set with kids. How are we going to reassess it?
So we're giving a test in, another 7 days or so?
Got it.
Yeah,
So
next,
what,
next Tuesday.
yeah, so why don't we just put on, 2 more questions to kind of circle back and see how they did. We don't have to do the whole, we can just add it on to what we're already doing.
One about the central idea and another one supporting details.
Yes.
Yep.
So we just add it on to the next test.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah, I got some bank of questions just like this in this area I could share.
and I
Okay.
might do an exit question or 2 in the meantime, just to see if those targeted kids are showing some improvement.
Oh yeah, you have those exit tickets you use all the time?
Yeah.
Can I borrow that?
Yes,
Thanks.
Guys, do we want these questions to be the same?
yeah,
Absolutely.
absolutely.
It just like this was, those should be the same so that we can look at the data and see.
So Brad, you said can you craft those and get those
Yeah.
out to us, and then we'll
Yeah.
make sure that we put them on the next
Tomorrow
test.
afternoon?
Mhm.
Okay,
And I'll get those exit tickets to you.
yeah, please, those are good.
So then I guess what our plan is to go ahead and do the test and with those 2 questions, and then after the test we'll just get back together. We'll collect data on those 2 and then see if our kids improve based on the strategies we're using from